All right, welcome back to Breakdown Some Bets. I'm Santino DeFranco with Brandan Olivas. We've got another UFC fight. Another week, another UFC card. These things are pretty much one a week at this point. It's a rarity these days. It's like Friday night fights back in the day. It's almost every Saturday there's a fight. And I love it in terms of betting. I love it in terms of stuff to do on a Saturday, but it kind of feels a little watered down. What's your take on all of the fights all of the time?
Yeah, you know what? I like it personally because I don't care about the name value. I'm not watching necessarily for entertainment. It's more so for betting, right? And that can come any week, any card, any shape, any size. So for me, perfect.
So you don't even care about the fights. You just care about the bets. Are you making money or are you losing money?
We're making a lot of money. Hey, wait, really quick. Speaking of money, I just want to give a quick shout out to, this episode is actually brought to you by LaCroix, our newest sponsor, LaCroix. Don't message us or talk to us about Sam's Club or Costco, waters like that. You're rocking with the best. You guys are too. That's why you're watching us. So LaCroix, put it in your mouth. All right.
You heard that here first. Put it in your mouth. LaCroix. You did pretty well last week. We had, what was the main event last week? Dern and Rodriguez, which I didn't do well on the main event, but I did well overall on the card.
I don't want to say maybe I should be the one coaching everybody here, but I called that fight to a T, called it exactly how it went. Marina wins, there we go.
That said, I think everybody else on the planet called it to a T except for me.
I had a lot of people talking Dern on this one.
Did you? Well, it's funny that she was actually the favorite on this. I think she was a slight betting favorite on the odds, which actually surprised me because I thought general logic would say she is the dog, but she wasn't. She was. Oh, really quickly, I got to apologize to you guys about my audio today. I am at. We've got a fighter tomorrow competing Dana White's Contender Series, Junior Cortez. So I'm over there with him, and I just have my AirPods with me. So you got to deal with me for this one. So I sound like I'm speaking out of a tin can.
That's all right.
Brandon's LaCroix can.
That's all right. Most people are not boots on the ground like you are, so we can sacrifice the audio for the knowledge. I think we're going to be okay on this one.
We'll get through one. But you, so I lost on Dern. You won on Rodriguez.
Everything. Yeah.
But then, what else did you bet?
Yeah, so we had a great week. So last week after the episode aired, Lupi Godinez got a new opponent, which I thought was a much better opponent for her. Sam Hughes, I think, is really tough and underrated. That would have been a great fight. This one, I said, put the house on Lupi. She's way too talented, and we see how that fight went. I think our next pick was Damon Jackson. He did, last week I would say is one of those weeks. Don't be so proud of yourself if you won some bets last week because everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. But I think what was really cool for us is that we called not only who was going to win, but exactly how they would do it. We said Damon Jackson, Rosa is going to go the distance, going to be a grinding wrestling fight, and Damon Jackson a little bit sharper, very, very clean. Romanov, I told you guys it's not as close, it's closer than people would think it was going to be.
And then we had Agapova that everybody said I was stupid for picking. She just looks phenomenal.
Yeah, great pick. She looked awesome. Finally, she chilled out a little bit. We had Gutierrez. Yeah, Gutierrez looked great.
But Carl Harris made a better fight out of it than I thought he would. He actually did pretty well. There's a couple of moments where I was a little bit worried about a few different things. And never really how that he was going to be finished or anything, Gutierrez, but just how the fight was going. Did he do enough to win the round? And there were some close rounds in there. I thought he won all three rounds, but I'm not a judge, and these judges are looking at different things at different angles. And when you are cage side, it is 100. I've been cage side, numerous fights. I'm watching these fights, and then I watch them afterwards online or on TV. They look significantly different than what you guys see on TV or what we see on TV, and it really is different. Hearing the thuds, hearing these punches hit. Depending on the camera angle, what side they're at, where they're at. And if you're a judge, if you're behind somebody, you can't really see the action the same as maybe one of the other two judges can. And it really affects judges. So it's not uncommon to see two judges have one fighter winning and a third judge having the other. It's not that that judge is an idiot. It's a vantage point. They're not looking down at a monitor. They're looking at a fight, and they just can't see what the other two judges can see. That said, and we have some idiot judges, but it's not all idiot judging.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I can only speak to this being in the corner of Camuela. I don't need the head Kirk. But watching his fight with Makwan, sitting there in person, every punch that he threw was bam, just smacking him. It was so hard and so loud. And then you watch on TV and it looks like he's just, kind of coasting. And you can see why the judges would give Camuela the fight because, man, every punch he landed was so devastating.
Yep. People online watching it, oh, he didn't do anything. He didn't this and that. Not everybody. I mean, it was a close fight regardless of who you thought won. But definitely being there live, it is very different than seeing it on television. So
yeah.
With that said, let's get to this week's TV fights coming up. We've got the UFC. Aspen Ladd is headlining it with Norma Dumont. And I find this is a really, really weird. I feel like I've said this every time we've done this podcast at this point, but I feel like this is a very strange main event. Aspen Ladd was supposed to fight a few weeks ago, missed weight. They rebooked her up a weight class. I don't even know who the original, main card was on this. I don't know if they were just missing one or
it was Holly Holm.
Oh, you're right. And why did Holly Holm come out? Was it COVID or?
It says knee injury.
Okay. And was that going to be contested at 135 or 145?
I don't think the UFC will let Norma fight 135 anymore. She's missed weight so many times that she's a 45er now.
But didn't Aspen Ladd miss weight a couple of weeks ago, which is why they rebooked her now at 45?
Yeah, so great question. I actually just looked at her Instagram post. So apparently here was the deal. So this fight had already been rescheduled one time. She came in at 137. She looked horrible on the scale. She had gone on her period, actually. That was what she said, was she hit her period, missed weight, and was looking bad. The fight was actually still on, and Macy Chasson actually said, no, I don't want the fight anymore.
Okay, interesting. So now they're fighting kind of short notice on a main event. And that changes things because that goes from a 3-round fight to a 5-round fight. I don't know if that'll really matter in terms of these two with cardio. I think their cardio is about the same, but it's just interesting to see that. But getting in the card, is there anything that stands out before we go kind of bottom to top in terms of this is your fight, this is your lock, this is your pick right here?
Oh, we're going locks right off the bat, or you want to start from bottom to top?
There's one fight that you just want to see, one fight that you're ready for on this card.
Okay, as a fan, one fight I want to see. I can't wait for Andrew Sanchez versus Bruno Silva. I've been racking my brain a million times over to figure out how that fight is going to go down. That's one I can't wait to see. Figuring out how to bet it is going to be a little tricky, but I like that as a fan. Okay,
nice. I actually like, which is the first fight I'm going to bet as a fan is, and I've been a big fan of this guy for a while, Brandan Davis versus Dana Badgierl. I'm over here looking at my phone, so if you guys see me, it's the fight card. I feel like Brandan Davis' striking is really, really clean. He actually reminds me of Tony Kelly, who's in the UFC now, who we've trained with before. Just striking wise, there's something about those Louisiana, Mississippi strikers that they seem to have a style about them. And I feel like Brandan Davis is super clean. His jiu-jitsu is not bad. I think his wrestling is his Achilles. He's been out of the UFC for a while, not a long while, but he's racked up 4 or 5 wins in a row. And now they brought him back because Badgierl's opponent pulled out, and I forget who that was. But I really like this fight. I think it's going to be a fun, exciting fight. And I'm excited to see Brandan Davis back in the big show. I think he got kind of a short end of the stick on his previous UFC run. And I think we're going to see a much better version of Brandan Davis for this card.
Yeah, so if we're diving right into this one, I actually did a lot of tape on this one. So I would agree with you. Brandan Davis is a really solid fighter. He hangs in there with guys that are top level in the division. But here's what I'm seeing. I think you hit the nail on the head. The wrestling is at Achilles' heel. His wrestling is not very good. Now, watching, I'm just going to say Dana because his last name is very tough for me.
Yeah.
His wrestling actually looks very good. The only time he's been taken down was by Haley, who, is a very good wrestler. He's, actually his accolades I didn't even know about. And that was at the end of the fight, after he kind of made a few mistakes. So I think Dana makes all the right decisions. I think his cardio holds up very well. And this is really going to come down to a kickboxing fight. I know we had talked about being worried about going to 35 for Brandan Davis, but he's made 35 a million times before. This is nothing new for him. The one thing that I'm seeing is Dana, his feints and the way that he pulls is so clean, mixed with how good his power is. A lot of times I was watching Brandan Davis and he kind of sits there watching people. He gets hit a lot. He sits there and watches people. I would tend to lean Dana in this matchup for a couple reasons. I just think he's a little bit cleaner of a striker. I think he's a little bit more powerful. And, Brandan Davis is still working full time at UPS while trying to make 35 on short notice to come back to the UFC. I would have to give the edge to Dana.
I am going the other way on this one. I think Brandan Davis gets the win. I don't know that wrestling is going to be too big of a factor. Davis is always in shape. He's always training. I don't think the weight cut is going to be too hard. And it's not like 7 days notice. I think it's a couple of weeks notice. Have you seen the odds on this? Because I don't see them released on Bovada yet.
Dana is minus 200. So.
Okay. So that sounds about right. I think Brandan Davis, his level of competition is infinitely better than Dana. He fought Zabit. And although Zabit submitted him in, I think it was the second round or third round with the Sulov stretch from his back, ended up knee barring him, rolling through, Brandan Davis put up a fight with that. And he was supposed to, I believe that was when Zabit was supposed to fight Calvin Kattar, right? And he turned the fight down. Was that?
I'm not sure. I had never known about Brandan Davis until like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, Brandan Davis is solid. I think he's clean. I think his movements and his angles are really good. He takes really good angles. He's never staying stationary with his feet, but he's really dynamic in a sense. Not dynamic. He's not an overly dynamic striker. That's the wrong word. He's versatile. He is kicking, he is kneeing, he is elbowing, he is punching. He mixes it up to the body. I think he's just really solid. I think he's really clean. I think his time away from the UFC has given him the opportunity to grow a little bit. And I think, and he fought Giga to a split decision. He fought Zabit. I mean, he is fighting really good guys. Dana fought Guido Canetti, and then he fought Haley, who's very good, but he's not at the top of the division. And he fought Kevin Natividad, who's very tough, but he's not at the top of the division either. Brandan Davis is fighting and losing to these guys close fights up a weight class. So he shouldn't even be fighting Zabit. He shouldn't have even been fighting Giga. He's not even anywhere near as heavy as them, and it's just game as shit. So he shows up and fights. I think Brandan Davis gets a win. I think it's a complete striking affair. Yep. But I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance.
I was going to say
actually, unless Dana ends up finishing the fight. So I see Davis winning by decision, Dana possibly getting a finish right there if it's but my money's on Davis.
I think the best way to make money from this fight, guys, and you guys can come back after the fight and see how it looks. I love the over 1.5 in this. No doubt over 1.5 is beautiful in this because they have such great chins. They're both game as they come. They're both seasoned kickboxers. Over 1.5, book it. Love it.
Yep. Do you know the odds on that right now?
They haven't released them. Not till we get closer.
Okay. Not till closer. You're up on the prop bets. Next one, right? I know that you were interested in Ludovic Klein and Nate Landwehr. We're saying Nate. I cannot pronounce that last name to save my life. But we've got Klein and Nate. I'm pretty big on Klein on this one. I think Nate's crazy. He's going to go out there and blitz. He's going to go out there and send some fury out fast. If Klein can get through the first minute and a half, which I think he will, I don't even think it's close. I think Klein ends up winning with his patented head kick. Left hand, left head kick. He's put 3 or 4 out of his last 5 opponents down with that. He lost to
Trezano. Yeah.
Yeah, he lost to him, but that's a different fight. Trezano's big. He's tall. He did a really good job negating that middle kick. And he was actually really patient. And I think his patience actually messed with Klein because Klein likes to catch people as they're coming in. He is more of a volume guy. He likes to mix it up more. Trezano being so methodical, I think really took away Klein's game. And there were some moments there. It was pretty close, for the most part. Trezano dropped Klein, but I think Nate goes in there sloppy, throwing down. I don't think he's disciplined enough to stay patient and really address that middle kick. And I think we end up seeing him. This could be performance of the night for Klein right here. This could be a knockout.
Yeah, I was trying to find a spot here where Nate Landwehr could be better than him. I figured there would be something cardio or just grit or something that he could be better than Klein at. I'm not crazy about Klein. I'm not crazy about him. I don't necessarily love these big muscled up guys, but Landwehr, every time he reaches for punches, he's trying to catch and reach for every single punch. And in turn, he's getting blown up in the face every single time by Erosa, by these guys. I can't see a single spot that Landwehr is better than Klein. Not cardio. He was tired after one round with Elkins. His chin is suspect. He gets hit so many times. And we saw with Klein, when he wants to wrestle, he can wrestle. And Landwehr has not shown great takedown defense in his fights in the UFC. Now, I will say, looking at their records, Landwehr's wins are pretty amazing. I just don't get the connection here. So I think this is going to be an easy win for Klein. I am inclined to say that it's going to be not as spectacular as you think. I think maybe a decision.
You think it goes decision? You think it's just kind of a boring decision? Kind of like the Trezano fight, but it goes the other way?
Yeah, and he had so that fight was really interesting too. Most people had Klein still winning that fight. Even rewatching it, I thought he won as well. Close fight, very, very close fight, but he just had such trouble navigating that distance. But Trezano was 5'11". Landwehr's 5'9", but he crouches down. I mean, it's not going to look like a huge size difference between the two.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a big size difference. And if you actually look, I think Klein's reach is listed at 72, but man, his reach looks way longer than 72 inches. He has some ape arms. I mean, and I don't think, even if he has given up a little bit of height, I don't think it's going to matter reach-wise. But I think you're right. Klein's fight IQ is pretty good. He knows when he's losing a striking battle or if it's just not going his way, and he knows how to time those takedowns. He did it at Trezano in the second round, and in the third round, he got those takedowns.
And in the first round, at the end.
Was it at the first round as well? Mm-hmm. Wasn't really able to do as much with them, but he's able to get those takedowns. He times them well. He blasts in. I think Nate, he even caught Erosa with a couple of good punches early, and then he just goes full asshat and just starts swinging, abandons all defense, all, balance, everything just starts going. He just gets hit with stuff that he should never get hit with. That said, he does have the win over Darren Elkins, and that alone just blows my mind because Darren Elkins is the toughest son of a bitch we've probably ever seen in the cage.
I would say his toughness is probably second only to like Kyle Bochniak,
That is a very tough guy. Speaking of Kyle Bochniak, Brandon Davis has a loss to Kyle Bochniak, which I believe was Brandon Davis' first fight or second fight in the UFC. Lost a decision to the one and only Kyle Bochniak.
Hey, I want to backtrack for just a minute here. There's actually a fight I really, really like that I want to talk about.
What do you got?
It's actually the first fight of the night. We have Ariane Carnelossi versus Estela Nunes. And I know in film study you may have skipped this one, but I like this one a lot.
Skipped it, 100%.
Okay, so this is going to be a good one, guys. I mean, this might be one of my favorite spots here. I died on the Jessica Penne when she was a dog against Carolina. Crushed it. Jinu Fry crushed it. So this is another spot I think is a very, very, very good spot. So we have Ariane Carnelossi. Carnelossi. She's had 2 fights in the UFC against Angela Hill, who she lost. She was getting torched in that fight and got cut open. They stopped the fight. And then she beat Na Liang, who was from China, in one of the most crazy fights I have ever seen. I was actually at that fight. Carnelossi is very interesting. She's not good. And I'll just let that be that. She's not very good. She's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, says she's a black belt in Muay Thai. Na Liang came out and dropped her with the very first punch of the fight. The problem with Carnelossi is she can't wrestle. She's slow. She plods forward. But the really interesting thing here is Estela Nunes. So Estela, she came over from ONE FC. She didn't have to go on Contender Series. The UFC signed her straight out of ONE FC. Her only loss is to Angela Lee, who we know how good she is and dominant she is in ONE FC. This girl's had a ton of Muay Thai and kickboxing fights. She's very, very well experienced. Now, when she came over to the UFC, she got banned for 2 years for steroids or for performance enhancing drugs. And I think
she came over from ONE FC.
There you go. So there you go. Which I like. Give me a little steroids. I love it. In that time, she actually moved over to ATT and was training with a lot of those people. So you see pictures over the time of her training with, all these top girls. Her one Achilles heel is the takedowns. But her Muay Thai is so sharp. Her kicks are so good. And she's so well-versed in the stand-up. After watching what Angela Hill did to Carnelossi, I think this fight is going to be a blowout, especially if she has learned anything in the last 3 years on how to stop a takedown. I don't think this fight's very close, and she's plus money. You cannot go wrong with this one.
Who's winning on the physicality factor with these two? That's a big deal in women's fights, which we'll get into the main event. A lot of times skills don't matter if the other fighter's so much more physical. Who wins in that battle here?
Okay, well, Carnelossi's 5'2", and she is just built as they come. She is just a little cannonball, right? Now you look at Estela Nunes. She's 5'7". She's got very slick, very sharp striking. Now her last fight is actually the perfect fight to watch against Gina Inyong, right? Gina Inyong's also 5'2", very imposing, very strong. And she had Gina running away and backing up the entire fight. Actually, when Estela does the best is when people aren't advancing, and she can crack you open. So I think this is the perfect stylistic matchup. I think she's strong enough, smart enough, and physical enough to outlast Carnelossi.
Okay, interesting. So there you have it. Now, does it go the distance or does it get finished?
Finish.
Is there a prop bet in there to play?
I don't like prop bets, so you guys can all play that, but I think this is going to be a finish. I think she's going to smoke her.
Okay, so the prop bet would be doesn't go the distance.
Yeah, if you had to play one, yeah. But I like.
You don't even have to pick a winner with that. You could just say, hey, the fight doesn't go the distance.
One way or the other.
With Brandon Davis, Dana, fight goes over 1.5. That's a solid bet.
But that's my underdog pick. Yep.
I like it. Moving up, I like the next one. I know you want to talk about is Andrew Sanchez and Bruno Silva. Is there one you want to talk about before that?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Sajara.
Oh, okay. Sajara Eubanks is fighting Luana Carolina.
I might be very biased here just from being in jiu-jitsu, but I love Sarge here. Sarge, to me, she's a phenomenal black belt. It looked like middle of the career. She was very undisciplined, and she let herself go up to the 35 division. Now she's training with Corey Anderson, Nick Catone MMA. She's in shape. Her wrestling looks good. And I will say about Sajara, she is the most consistent women's fighter in the whole UFC. You know every single time what she's going to do, the decisions she's going to make. You know exactly what she has to offer. There's very little in the way of unpredictability about Sajara Eubanks.
She is. I like what you said. She's consistent, and you don't get that with a lot of the women. Women aren't consistent not only because they're not consistent, because they're matched up unevenly in terms of physicality. And the thing with women is what a lot of fans don't understand, and what a lot of bettors don't understand, is the difference between. Let's take the top 10 women. Okay, the top 10, we'll say just in athleticism. Out of 100. Okay. So we'll say number 10 is at a 60% athleticism. Well, number 9 might be at 80% athleticism, and a number 8 might be at even a 90% athleticism. There's such a big gap in athleticism and skill level in women because the numbers are so small compared to men's, where in a men's division, if you have a number 10th guy athletically, he's going to be just marginally better or worse, than the number 9th guy, who's going to be marginally worse than the number 8th guy. And these are small little increments at skill level and at physicality. Women, the gaps are just so big, and you don't know because we don't know the level of their opponents, so it's hard to gauge. And I think you're right with Sajara. She has fought top competition her whole career, and you know what you're getting with her. And she always shows up. You always know she's going to show up and put on a fight.
And just on the flip side, because I don't want to just go based on me liking somebody. I rule out every possible aspect. I look at both of their film all the way through. Luana's got some interesting habits. I mean, every single time she's reaching straight out, her chin goes up in the air. She's throwing these rabbit crazy punches. I don't think Sajara has the most amazing striking ever. The one thing that I was worried about was Sajara has been known to gas out, especially rounds 2, rounds 3. I think she's in much better shape now. And then the size. I was like, oh man, Luana's huge. How is Sarge going to take her down? And then you look at her fights with Pani Kinzad. She's taken down girls that were much heavier and the exact same height as Luana. And Luana's in love with her jiu-jitsu. She loves to stay on her back. So that's not going to go well against a multiple time, world champion black belt. So I love Sarge here. One of my favorite spots.
Okay, nice. What's the next fight you got
on? You take the lead. I'm game, wherever.
Okay. You're Andrew Sanchez and Bruno Silva. Forget about who wins. Does that fight go the distance?
There's no way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so. I think that's the play right there. Is this fight does not go the distance, or I don't even know. Depending on the bets that they have, it doesn't go 2.5. I say does not complete 2.5 rounds. Somebody's going to sleep early. Andrew Sanchez is a freaking lightning bolt, but so is Bruno Silva too. Not to be confused with the 125-pound Bruno Silva, who we know trains with us. Bulldoguinho. But yeah, it wouldn't. I really like Sanchez. I really like him. He's very fast. He's dynamic. I don't know if have we really seen him in the trenches and come out on top.
I have not watched a lot of his film this time. I don't think so. I don't think he's been tested the way that Bruno is going to be able to test him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Bruno is going to be there. It's going to be a slugfest. I think Bruno's a little bit tighter with his hands. I think he's a little bit tighter just overall striking. He's not as wild. He's not as fast as Sanchez, but he's not as wild as him either. And I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed early. If you forced me to pick him, I think I would pick Bruno Silva. But I think the play here is that the fight does not go the distance. And I think that's kind of we say that. A lot of times when you get these strikers, these dynamic strikers, these dynamic wrestlers, they dynamic jiu-jitsu guys, they end up knowing what the other person is capable of, and it ends up being kind of a boring. I mean, look at the Johnny Walker Santos fight a couple of weeks ago. Nobody on the planet, I think, save for you, thought that was going the distance, and that was the play. And of course it went the distance. I don't see this one going the distance, and I think that's a solid one. The next one.
Well, let me touch on this really quickly because there was a play. Actually, I had a really rough week that week, but my original play was Wellington Turman. I watched the Bruno Silva Wellington Turman fight, and to me, that was one of the best fights to watch for both of those guys. I left that fight going, man, both of these guys are awesome. I love Wellington Turman's cage wrestling. Man, how good did he look cage wrestling? And his jiu-jitsu was sharp. Everything about that kid was like, man, he's solid. And then the way that Bruno turned him around and his ground and pound, when he hits you, it's a very different feeling, I think, than a lot of guys when they hit you. Every single punch is it just thuds. The way that he hits you is so different than a lot of people. And I think that's dangerous. He throws
for conviction, and the way that he throws forces people to move and react in ways that they don't want to, versus just like little punches where, the person on the bottom can get up, can move. He throws and people panic and they start turning and they start panicking, and that just opens his offense up more and more.
And this is another steroid play, guys. So he was off for a couple years. Steroids, yeah. I love it. Let's throw it in there.
I love the steroid plays. But one of the fights I really like is Julian Marquez and Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright is 12-1 and Julian Marquez is 9-2. But there is a lie here, 100%.
On both sides.
Jordan, on both sides, I'm way more on Jordan Wright's side.
Yes.
He is 12-1. His first 6 opponents. That's 6. Look, I can't even fit 6 fingers on my camera. 6 opponents did not have a win. The combined record of his 6 opponents is, I think, 0-45. 45 losses without a victory in his first 6 opponents. Now, since then, he won an LFA. He goes out there. He looks better. He was at Jackson's for a little while. Trains with Anthony Hardonk now, who's a good kickboxer. Had great leg kicks back in the day, but he is not 6-1. Or 12-1. He's 6-1 in my book. Now, Julian Marquez. I mean, he's fought kind of a who's who. He's solid. He is tested. Before we get into who you think is going to win, what do you have to say about these guys, skill wise?
Julian Marquez. Oh, Julian Marquez. I think there's only 2 guys in the UFC that I can name off the top of my head that when fight IQ comes to my mind, I go, these are the worst guys in the entire UFC in terms of fight IQ. And it's Julian Marquez, Roman Dolidze. Those are the 2 every time I think about it. I actually like Marquez. I love Marquez. I chose him against Maki Pitolo, and every second of that fight, I'm going, oh my God, why is he doing this? And the hard part is he's so big. He's so athletic. He's got a phenomenal chin. He's got skills everywhere. He hits like a truck. He just makes horrible decisions. And as far as Jordan Wright, man, I don't know what to think of him yet. I don't think that Jamie Pickett is a UFC fighter, and that was his win. And Ike Villanueva, I feel the same way. I don't think either of those guys are UFC caliber. And his one loss was to Joaquin Buckley, who I do think is very much so UFC caliber. So where do we put Jordan Wright?
I don't think you put him in the win column. I think that's for certain.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go out there. He flails. And again, he's another guy. He's a poor man's Nate Wandeller. I don't think that Jordan Wright, he's going to go out there and blitz. And he is fast. He is athletic. He's a big, kind of long 185-pounder. He goes out there. He overwhelms people. He throws the first 30 seconds to a minute. He is in your face, winging stuff. And then, but even as he's doing it, his hands, what you were talking about earlier, reaching. He's always reaching with his hands. He's throwing. He's always off balance. He's never back where he should be after a combination. And he just overwhelms people. And he overwhelms people who shouldn't be fighting at that level. We see Julian Marquez. I mean, I'm looking at his record now. He beat Phil Hawes, who's a solid
Great
fighter.
win.
He beat
Great
Darren Stewart, who's probably about 500 right now in the UFC, but he's legitimately tough. He doesn't want to die, and he finished him, and he's hard to finish.
I think you need to drop in the UFC from that one.
What's that?
I think you have to drop out in the UFC from that statement.
Oh, did he get cut?
My boy Dustin Jacoby, shout out Dustin Jacoby. I think he put a clinic on him. I don't know if Darren's with the UFC anymore.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if he still is. I know, they fought in the UFC. So but we've got Alessio Di Chirico. So he lost a split decision to Alessio. And then, of course,
solid.
He beat Maki Pitolo and Sam Alvey. He's proven. He's battle-tested. We are not worried about him anywhere. His striking is clean. He has really good reflexes. He uses that long jab. He kind of paws with that left hand, but he doesn't paw. Like, he's not sloppy when he paws. He's not dropping it. He kind of frames with it. It's in your face. His cage wrestling is good. His jiu-jitsu is good. I think this is an easy lock. Not only do I think Julian Marquez wins it, I don't think this fight goes the distance.
I would agree with you 100%. Just an interesting note in Jordan Wright's entire career, he's never been beyond 48 seconds in the second round. And that's fighting somebody who's got a granite chin. He's got James Krause in his corner. Every single thing lines up for Marquez here.
Next fight we have Manon Fiorot and Mayra Bruno Silva. I know you're big on one of these girls. Which one is it?
Yeah, got to go Fiorot. That's my girl every single time.
She is a freaking monster. She is built. She is one of the most physically athletic women I think I've seen. I mean, she is a tank. her striking is beautiful. I love it. It's more of a karate base, where we have Myra, which is more of a Muay Thai base. All right. The thing with Myra is she's got a good clinch. Okay, don't get me wrong. She has a good clinch. Her jiu-jitsu is not bad. She'll attack some jiu-jitsu, especially if people are shooting on her. They try and grapple. She'll try and re-grapple right there. Outside of the clinch, and I'm not even sure she could win in the clinch with Fierro, but outside of the clinch, I don't think there's any way she wins. She's so much slower. Her hands are so loopy. Was what we were talking about earlier, is just being physical. Manon is a physical woman. She is fast, and she's not a volume puncher, but she definitely has a karate background. But when she throws hard.
And nothing's loaded. Nothing is loaded. Everything is right from here. It's
very tight, but it's very karate-ish in the sense of kind of a woman's version of Prime Machida. She doesn't kick as much like that, but just the way that she measures distance and comes in and just throws just heavy. And she doesn't gas. She's fast.
She is mean. I could say, she's just mean.
Now, the only question mark, I don't know if we've seen her ground game yet. Have we ever seen her on the ground at all?
I don't think so. Not at least in the UFC, but she did go for it. She did take down Tabitha Ricci, but she didn't need to.
Yeah, she didn't need to. That was just, she was big and kind of threw her to the ground. And Ricci's a 115er taking the fight on like 3 days.
It's hard to judge that fight. They look 3 weight classes apart. Yep. But I was actually watching film on her and I'm like, man, who does she remind me of? Who does she remind me of? And I went, Holly Holm. She's southpaw. She's just physically just a freak of nature, just shredded abs. She never gets tired. She's always on her bike. I'm like, Holly Holm. How weird is that? She was supposed to be on the undercard of a Holly Holm fight.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. And she leads with that side kick. That side kick measures her out. Muay Thai practitioners are not used to that side kick coming at them the same way that a karate fighter is. And I think that's going to really frustrate her from the outside. She's going to get a little bit desperate. When she gets into range, I do not want to be her face when Fierro is punching her.
Nasty. I think we're pretty clear on that one. That might be a lock for me. Myra, again, chin up. She reaches for a lot of punches. She's constantly pawing. It's hard. And
she's slow. She plods. She's slow. She does not have the athleticism to handle just a very athletic striker.
And no takedowns. She's never, I don't know, she's 0% in the UFC on takedowns.
Yeah, I think that's an easy win, easy lock. Next one coming up, we've got Jim Miller and Eric Gonzalez. Do you have a play on this one?
This was the last one I got to. I looked at almost everything else except for this one. I watched a little bit of film on Eric Gonzalez. I got to go with the veteran here. I got to go with Jim Miller. To me, Eric Gonzalez, he's fought in Combates, who does not put out the best products. If you look at Combates, the level of competition is so low in Combates most of the time. Eric is tall, he's rangy, but he's not super dangerous with his hands. He's got a lot of decisions with guys that don't have phenomenal records. His wrestling is not very good at all. I know Jim Miller's old, and on paper it says the younger guy should smoke him. He's 38. But I think Jim Miller is such a veteran, and I think his wrestling and his grappling is just way too good for Sanchez here.
Yeah, I think Gonzalez. Wrong.
You're going Gonzalez?
No. You said for Sanchez here, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I think Jim Miller, he's old. He hasn't won a lot of fights lately, but he's not getting finished in those fights. He's losing decisions for the most part, and he's tough. I don't think Jim Miller has a lot of fights left in him. I think he's going to retire soon. I do not think Eric Gonzalez is the guy who's going to retire Jim Miller. I don't see it happening. His hands are sloppy at best. Pulls everything back to his hips, kind of rushes forward and marches, skip steps, switch steps, stepping in, just kind of rushes. Again, like you said, I don't think he has the wrestling to compete with Jim Miller outside of a flying knee or just an absolute Hail Mary. I think Jim Miller all the way, kind of an easy lock. And I don't see Eric Gonzalez having a long tenure in the UFC with the promotion.
Do we know if this was a short notice or?
I don't know. I was looking at that. I was looking to see if I could figure that out, and I couldn't. Gonzalez was signed. He's not a contender guy. He's not a tough guy. I don't know what the thing was. I believe when I was looking at Tapology, they didn't have Jim Miller with a canceled fight ahead of it.
Mm-mm.
So I was curious about this, but it kind of seems like he was thrown in to this fight first. But I don't even think this fight is up on the odds yet on Bovada. So I don't know where this fight came from. It's not even listed.
So when you're checking out odds, you can go to Best Fight Odds. They're going to list every single book and what the odds are for it. And sometimes some have it and some don't. It just takes a second.
Oh, okay. What are the odds on that?
Let me find out. I'm going to use Bet Online just to look at it. It is minus 220 for Jim Miller and plus 185 for Eric Gonzalez.
Yeah, I think those odds are pretty spot on.
I just want to say one last thing here. I know some people appreciate kind of the technical breakdowns, and I think that's what's going to separate us a little bit from everyone else. I love to look at comps, when judging fights because, fight styles make fights. Jim Miller lost to Joe Selecki, who's a black belt, can wrestle his ass off, and he's very physical, very good. He lost to Vince Pichel, who same thing. He's a brown belt, maybe a black belt, but very good grappler and a veteran of the game, very physically strong. And he lost to Scott Holtzman, who again is a wrestler, very physically strong. Jim Miller beat Roosevelt Roberts, who is a very sharp striker, decent wrestler, but nothing crazy. And he beat Roosevelt Roberts, so I think the comp there is Roosevelt Roberts is the a million times better version of Eric Gonzalez, and Jim Miller still found a way to win. So
I think you're right. Strength of schedule is a really big deal, and people don't realize that. They tend to look at records, especially things like boxing. Boxing records were very bloated. They're not quite as bloated as they used to be, but they're very, very bloated. And you see guys, I hate to hear Julio Cesar Chavez references to record when they're talking about Mayweather. Mayweather's 50-0. People say, oh, it's the best record ever. He's the best ever. And people are like, oh, Julio Cesar Chavez was 75-0 or whatever he was until he lost. The first 30 people were the first 6 people on Jordan Wright's record. I mean, these are cab drivers. Go look them up. These are guys who are 0-5, 0-8, 1-2. I mean, Julio Cesar Chavez was a great boxer, but to put his first 70 or 75 wins, whatever, up against Mayweather's first 50 wins. I mean, and of course, Mayweather's first, 10, 12 wins were similar to Julio Cesar Chavez, of course, but his first 10 or 12 wins, not his first 64 wins. And strength of schedule says a lot. And you see a guy that has fought a bunch of 0-1 guys. We saw it with that kid from XFC Explode out of California. They're grabbing people out of the stands, and these guys are 13-0, and they go in a UFC fight and get starched in a minute and a half. And then you see guys, honestly, the guard guy Camuela, he has fought tooth and nail the whole way. He's going to have a good UFC career because we know he's battle tested. He's battle tested against other people who are in the UFC, and that's what I want to see. I want to see how do these guys compete against like high level opponents, not what their record is. Because as we know, and you see it all the time, these guys who are 9-0, 9-1, fighting these vets who are 15-7. Those 15-7 guys win quite a bit. They get the upset on those first time, second time UFC fighters who have all this momentum behind them, but do not have the really the experience fighting those tough guys who aren't going to quit.
Yeah, totally agree.
Next up, we've got Andre Arlovsky and Carlos Felipe. When I was watching Carlos Felipe, so I'm watching tape on this, and I'm watching Felipe, and I'm going, Andre Arlovsky's going to kill him. He's short. All he does is throw that big overhand, and I really am like clueless how he's going to win. So then I go back and I start watching Andre Arlovsky's last probably 4 fights, and I'm going, Arlovsky's going to get killed here. That's the quick version of it. Who do you have in that fight and why? And then I'll explain. Well, actually, I'm going to explain myself first. Because Andre Arlovsky, we've said this probably 3 or 4 times about 3 or 4 different fighters now, is when they get punched or people throw punches at them, chins up, hands are out in the air, and they back up. And if you watch Arlovsky throughout his career, probably every knockout of his, when he was knocked out, were exactly that. Chin up, hand stretched out, reaching, backing up, and gets hit with an overhand over the top. And he has done that, I mean, time and time again. And I'm watching even his last few fights. As he is throwing punches, his hands are at his chest. He is not even remotely trying to protect his chin. And when people punch him, he flails as if he's never been punched at before. And you would think that he'd be a little bit sharper. But Arlovsky does well because he's 6'3", 6'4", tall. And when people respect Arlovsky and try and outpoint him, try and touch him, try and, play a technical game with Arlovsky, they lose. He will win that fight every time. When people get in there and swing and throw haymakers at Arlovsky, he goes right back to Arlovsky, either swings with his hands down or he exits chin up, reaching out and gets clipped. And Carlos Felipe, I don't know. I don't know how to say anybody's name anymore. He's not a tall heavyweight, but his hands are glued to his temples all the time. They never leave. And he's got a fastball of a right hand. Okay, I mean, that thing comes like he's throwing a pitch, 90-mile-an-hour pitch. But he will, if you get near him and throw, he will fire 3 shots at you. He is not afraid to mix it up. He has cardio for days. Even if he doesn't find Arlovsky's chin with that big overhand, which I don't think he has a knockout in the UFC, he will, I believe that he's going to outvolume Arlovsky. As long as he doesn't give Arlovsky respect and try and stay on the outside, Arlovsky will just jab you all day. Jab, inside low kick, jab, inside low kick for 15 minutes, make the most boring fight out of it. If Carlos can crowd 3 inches to make Arlovsky a little uncomfortable and just get in there and mix it up, I see him winning this, almost with ease. Not to say he's going to knock him out or he's going to murder him. I just don't see it being overly competitive with the Arlovsky that we see right now, who doesn't have that dynamic knockout finishing power that we saw 300 years ago when he started fighting.
I was about to be really sad when you started with, I think Carlos Felipe is going to get killed. Because I love this guy. I mean, how can you not love this guy? He'll get tagged 9 punches in a row and go, all right, let's go. Come on. And he's talking trash all the way through. But when you really look at it, man, he's kind of technical. Just like you said, he's got a high guard all the time, which is, I think, super important at heavyweight. Man, the guy just has so much volume. And I agree with you 100%. People were talking about his last fight against Jake Collier. It's hard to judge Jake Collier because he's a middleweight that got fat. He moves still like a middleweight. That's just fat. He's so fast.
For a round.
And Arlovsky is not that. I think that Carlos Felipe, I love this pick here. I love him here. He jabs. He throws that right hand. He's got a great leg kick. He's always pushing forward, and the guy is just game as they come. He's ready to go. I love this pick. I love watching him. Even if I don't bet on this one, which I probably will, actually. I just love watching this kid fight. He's amazing. I think the really smart play here is, again, over a round. You could probably hit over 2 rounds in this one. Honestly, I think they're going to jab each other to the death of them. I love the over in this fight. I love Felipe. Hit the nail on the head.
Nice. All right. Main event time. And this one was hard, cause I'm watching, I haven't watched a bunch of tape on either of these two prior. I've seen them fight, here and there, but I haven't watched them. I haven't dissected, haven't given them either of them enough of my interest. And I'm watching Norma Dumont. And this is honestly, it's kind of the same as Carlos, Felipe Andre Arlovsky. I'm watching Norma Dumont. Doesn't do anything well. She's just kind of there. She has power in her hands, and she is down to fight. She's hard to take down, just because her hips, her ass, her legs are huge for her body frame, and people shoot on her and try and get underneath her. And she stops them like a dam stops water in the Colorado, and it's really hard for people to get going on her. She doesn't do a lot. She almost doesn't throw unless she's thrown at. Like, she'll just sit there and wait and back up and back up. But then when she does throw, she throws heaters. That said, her arms are all over the place. She looks sloppy. Her hands are all over. She does not look clean. Her fight IQ is by far better than her fight technique. She doesn't have her hands up. She's not in balance. She doesn't bring her hands back to her face. Her punch is all looped from an angle, like she's throwing a baseball. Nothing about her says that she should be 6-1. And to her credit, her loss is to Megan Anderson, who's huge, who's physical, who's very dynamic. So I'm looking at Norma and I'm going, man, like I am very unimpressed. Not with her ability to win, because that is her best asset, is her ability to win. But her skill level doesn't seem like it matches her ability to fight. So then I'm looking at Aspen Ladd. And Aspen is a pretty technical striker. I mean, she's clean. She's on balance. Her hands are high. She throws. She's fast. She pulls her hands back. She's a decent wrestler as well. I wouldn't say she's a world beater wrestler, but she times her takedowns well. She gets them on Kanetsuya. Is that how you say that? Her last opponent? Kunitskaya. Yeah. So, I mean, she did a great job finding trips under Kunitskaya. Took her down a few times. Kunitskaya's a kickboxer, so there's that. And then she ends up getting the finish. On paper, if you're just watching them alone without thinking that they were fighting, you're saying Aspen Ladd, me anyway, I'm going Aspen Ladd wins this easily on a complete technical level. I don't know if she's going to be able to physically do anything to Norma Dumont. I don't know that she's going to be able to take Norma down. I don't know that her wrestling, coupled with how big Norma is and how small Aspen Ladd is comparatively frame-wise, I don't know if that wrestling is going to be a good idea to get stuck underneath Norma, who has some good top game when she wants it. And she doesn't have great wrestling, but she will shoot and she'll get a takedown. We saw it on Ashley Evans Smith, who's supposed to be the NAIA All-American.
Come on.
This and that.
Come on.
She threw her down. Yeah, on paper, accolades, but she threw her down. She just toyed with her. And Ashley Evans Smith looked, man, the first part of that fight, Evans Smith is moving and gliding, and she looked the better striker. She looked the better fighter. And nothing went her way. And Norma was just there, beating her, bullied her, threw her down, and looking at them separately, you'd go, Ashley Evans Smith is probably the more technical person all around. And Norma Dumont just beat her up any way she wanted to. All of my technical knowledge says Aspen Ladd is the better fighter here. I think Norma Dumont is going to get the win, which is amazing to me. I don't know if this will come into play, but Aspen Ladd, we talked about earlier, was also supposed to fight a couple of weeks ago. She missed weight. Now she's fighting up a weight class. Does that missed weight with women? That's another thing. Women, it's harder for women to cut weight than it is for men. And I feel like it physically damages their body worse than it does men in the short term. And does that affect Aspen Ladd here does her body break down? Does she crash? I don't know. Even if it doesn't, Norma Dumont won't die. What do you think about that?
Man, I'm going to have to go way the other way. I watched a little bit of film, and what's interesting here is first looking at this matchup, I went, oh, Norma's going to smoke Aspen Ladd. I have an emotional attachment to Norma because I did pick her against Ashley Evans Smith when she was an underdog. And I thought, hey, she's going to kill Ashley Evans Smith. And I won a lot of money on that bet, so I had an emotional attachment. And as I'm sitting here watching film, right, first of all, what's interesting, she's been an underdog in every fight in the UFC.
Norma or Aspen?
Norma. She's been an underdog in every fight she's had in the UFC, which I don't know why that means anything, but to Ashley Evans Smith, she's an underdog. To all these people, she's an underdog. She has had nothing but troubles making weight. So when you're talking about the size difference, I'm not sure that there really is much of a size difference. Norma is supposed to be honestly, her top half is a straw weight and her bottom half is a welterweight. You know what I mean? And so she's meeting somewhere in the middle here. I don't think she's very big. Now, here's a couple technical parts that I have. Her last fight, she won a split decision with Felicia Spencer. Felicia didn't shoot one single takedown. Not once did she try to use her jiu-jitsu, which is her bread and butter. She just struck with Norma Dumont the entire fight, and it was a split decision, which is insane to me. Um,
Which is insane to me that it was a split decision, though. I watched that fight earlier today, and I was like, man, that is like
Bad one.
Norma Dumont's fight. That was a bad call.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't watch the thing the whole way through, but
Okay, but honestly, though, yeah, and that's what I'm going with the Norma Dumont thing. It amazes me because in her last fight with Felicia Spencer, she looks horrible. And I'm sorry to say it, but we're fighting at the highest level of the sport. And in Felicia Spencer's stand up looked really, really subpar. She wasn't able to, I mean, like you said, she didn't shoot. She wasn't able to get to fight to the ground. Um, like, what are we doing here? Like, how did this fight come about? And how is she? And I mean, again, I don't mean to be rude. I just watching her standing, it was really painful. And I thought Norma Dumont, I don't think is a technical stand up, you know, savant over here, but I thought she clearly outstruck Felicia easily and
totally
just
fair.
over. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's just, and that's why I say, like, Norma Dumont, I'm not impressed with her striking. I'm not. I get why she's an underdog. I get it. I mean, the odds makers are going, she doesn't have the skill, and I agree with them 100%. And Aspen Ladd has all of the skill, but I for some reason in this fight, I won't touch it. In terms of money, I am not going to touch this thing at all. I wouldn't. What I would touch is, does it go over 1.5? Does it go over 3? Does it go the distance? I like those plays in this because I don't see either of these two finishing the other one, especially not early. But I think it's going the distance. Everything on a technical level tells me Aspen Ladd is better everywhere. And for some reason, I'm going, I can't get it out of my head that Norma Dumont is so physical and just a tank. She's not even physical in terms of like dynamic and hard to deal with and offense. It's her defense of just, you hit her and it's like hitting a freaking redwood tree. I just don't know how Aspen Ladd is going to handle that. So I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it.
I'm gonna die. Hey, I like to dive in the fire. Anybody in my Telegram group, and by the way, message me you want to get in the Telegram group. I like to dive in the fire. I love Aspen Ladd here for a few reasons. Just I must have been coached by you because we're seeing the same things technically. And I said last week about Agapova and Mazo. My brain said Mazo, but my eyes were telling me Agapova by far, not even close. And sometimes you just have to trust your eyes. The period thing makes perfect sense to me with Aspen Ladd. She didn't miss by 5 pounds. She missed by 1 pound, right? Now she gets to move up 10 pounds and fight a very small 45er. She's already in shape. She's already good. Technically, she's very smart. And I think fight IQ, she's on the other end of the spectrum from a Julian Marquez. I think she does everything right every single time. And watching against Sajara Eubanks, who I hold in a high regard, she out wrestled Sajara. She out jujitsu'd Sajara. She did every single thing right against somebody who's got amazing hips, amazing grappling. And I think Aspen's striking is better, her decision making. And I would say this is the last thing. Last week, we saw cardio come into play very big in the main event. In that Felicia Spencer fight, Norma, because she's such a tank and everything is one-off power, she got so tired, her volume slowed down. Again, it's a 5-round fight. You got smart Aspen Ladd in a 5-round fight. And my favorite thing out of everything I've seen of Aspen Ladd, her post that she put on Instagram. It's just the fight poster, and she
What
said,
are they? What I don't.
She just said, "Fighters fight." I love it. I love it. I love it. Fighters fight. Let's go. Let's go, Aspen Ladd. That's easy.
She's a gangster. I like it. Man, like I said, in terms of money, I'm not touching it. That won't get $1 of my money. I think it's too volatile. Like I said, everything in my soul tells me Aspen Ladd, and I'm not touching that at all. Anything else you got going on before? There's a Bellator coming up. We want to mention a couple things. I just want to mention one fight. I don't even know the odds yet. You might look it up. See, have any odds been released for Bellator anywhere?
Not yet for that.
There's a bet. Sully Cully is fighting on that. I don't know if they'll have him listed as Sully Cully or Sullivan Cully. Bet the house on him. He might be like -1,000, so then it's not worth it. If he's anywhere near a decent odds. Throw everything you have on that guy. He is state champion, ASU wrestler, won numerous kickboxing fights. I think he just won the USMTO amateur Muay Thai tournament. He went to Tennessee or somewhere just recently, picked up another belt in Muay Thai. He is phenomenal. Bet the house on him. Do you like any picks on Bellator before we're out of here?
Yeah, I'll throw a couple really quick ones. Vadim Nemkov, I think that's probably pretty safe. I still need to tape it, but that guy's just solid as it comes. My favorite guy, I love Corey Anderson. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. I think he is a lock. Very intelligent guy. And the last one I would say, other than Sully, is I like Lance Gibson Jr. Bellator, they pick their favorites. That's the amazing thing about Bellator is they tell you who they want to win, and they're always going to set them up to win. So Lance Gibson Jr., I think that's a good one.
Yeah, Bellator knows who they want to win. The UFC puts fights together who they like, who are matched well, and may the best man win and move up the division. And they kind of, you got to be ready to fight anybody at any point and let the cards fall as they may. And you really get the best fighter for the most part in the top 5, top 10. Bellator, you could be fighting next week at heavyweight, and somehow you're fighting a paraplegic midget. And they'll pick the right fights. They'll make the guys win 90% of the time when they want them to win.
I will say sometimes there has been a few times in the last couple of weeks on the UFC where the UFC rarely is telling you who they want to win. And that's very rare for the UFC. But when you can spot it, you got to crush it.
We see that a lot with the strikers and the girls who are generally a little prettier. You see them, they want to see them win. They want to see those guys. They like that excitement.
Yeah.
Or just people with huge followings. Like you'll definitely see things like that. So,
for example, last time Loopy, that's who they wanted to win. You could tell they wanted her to win. That was an easy one. That's how you know.
I mean, look at Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley is very talented. I really like his skill level. I think he's going to do well even at the higher end of the division once he starts fighting those guys. When his last opponent pulled out, there's a line out the door to fight him. And they pulled Chris Montino in last minute, who'd never been in the UFC before, who was kind of a tailor-made fight for Sean to showcase. And there was 20 other bantamweights in the division already, hands raised, asking for the shot. And they were like, nope, we're picking this guy.
Pretty clear. Even when they put Thomas Almeida against him, you can tell who they want to win that fight.
You know what they're doing. Well, all right. Well, great to have you. Good luck on your bets this week. We got Contender. We've got our guy Junior Cortez on tomorrow in the main event. So besides that, like, subscribe, share, follow Brandan Olivas on Instagram. Follow me, Santino DeFranco on Instagram. We'll see you guys next time. Make sure you guys comment. We got a lot of comments last time. You guys not liking our picks, think we're crazy. Money you made, money you lost. Let us know. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you're making money. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. As always, bet responsibly. Thank you.